Hey guys, and welcome to Some Things Fishy. Today we're going to be showing you how to use these fidget toys to feed your Nano Reef tank. I realize that there are so many strategies for feeding tanks and so many foods that are designed for these larger tanks, right? Like I have a 15-gallon cube in my office and I don't need to feed them the full-size mysis shrimp ice blocks. And so I came up with a really cool method using these little guys to feed my tanks. So let's just jump right into it. This is just standard like mysis shrimp, right? So you can buy this frozen from Petco or your local fish store. And you can do this with all sorts of different foods. I like to take the cubes and I like to let them sit on these little fidget toys, and you can get bigger ones of these. I just had a bunch of these left over from I use them for miniature paintings. They basically turn into like a little ice cube tray. I don't need an entire ice cube tray for my tiny small nano tank. Once they thaw, you spread them out evenly because you can just break it off. You put it inside your syringe or baster or whatever you use, and that way, these two cubes will fill up this whole tray, and you'll experiment to find out how much you need in each tray, but those two cubes will fill up this tray really nicely. Each of these has 2 cubes in it, and that is 9 days each. So, on average, I'm using a cube every 4.5, 5 days, right? So this thing, which is $10 of frozen food, frozen mysis shrimp, right? This will last me almost a third of the year, basically. Some people will actually take the thawed cubes, they'll thaw out a bunch of shrimp, and they'll add mix-ins to it, whether it's Reefroids, another reef supplement, some algae, whatever it may be for their specific tank. For me, I keep it simple so that I know exactly what is in each little individual puck, and that is just mysis shrimp, and then I mix things in later on. All right, so I have my syringe, and it's got a frozen bead of that mixture that I have from downstairs, which is just pure mysis shrimp. So I will actually take this cap off. Now, this is a little bit of a rogue strategy, but every once in a while, not every day, I'll take some Reefroids from Polyp Lab. I love these things. And I will just suck up a little bit, just using the air. It's just not much, right? It's gonna be less than a teaspoon. Now, if you really wanna get scientific with this, you're not gonna wanna do what I just did, because that's not gonna give you an exact amount every single time you feed. So what I'm doing here is just basically adding a little bit of nutrition, a little bit of extra oomph to my feeding, because I've noticed that my nitrates can get a little low just because I'm not feeding very much, right? This tank is so small. I only have 2 fish in here, a lot of inverts, but the coral is basically a lot of what I'm feeding. And so the coral suck up a lot of the nutrients, and then there's a little bit of algae, but it's not anything huge. So all I do is I suck up some of that Polyp Lab Reefroids. Make sure and seal this up. It does not smell good. It smells like a fish market. And then all I do is, you can even just kind of get all that extra air out and just get that, you see all that get sucked up in there. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait, 15, 20 minutes basically to let that hardened, chunk of ice in here melt, let it integrate with that salt water directly from the tank. And this way, when I go to feed, my food isn't gonna really float or sink or anything like that. So a lot of the time what I'll actually do is I'll just set it down right on top of the tank. That light can keep it a little bit warm. It's not gonna get too cold or anything like that. So we'll take a break for a few minutes and we'll come check back in when that's ready to go. All right, it has been a few minutes and our water is just about ready to go. Oh, just got dripped on. Don't get a saltwater tank if you don't expect to get wet. So I'm gonna show you basically how I choose to feed my animals using this. It's basically just a large pipette or turkey base or whatever you wanna call it. Really nice because it has this wheel that lets you slow feed. Has a lot of different options to it. I can just plunge it and just heavy dose all at once, or I can, target feed. I can even take this tip off. So check it out. You can just look up basic, aquarium site or aquarium syringe, and you'll find something just like this for less than $20. And it's honestly, I use this every day. I use it to spray off rock. Can't recommend it enough. But anyway, let's get into feeding. I'm going to do a little bit of a close up on this, and we'll get some good feeding. Okay, so what I have done is I have turned off all the pumps, turned down my flow really, really low. In AI, which is the program I use, Aqua Illumination, they have a setting called feed mode, and this just cuts flow and lighting to a certain level that's ideal for feeding your tanks. So what I've done is turned it into feed mode, and that's why the light's a lot different. It's not as blue, but I'm just gonna come in here with my pipette, right? And I'm just gonna slowly, feed. So as you can see, there's a mix of brine, or of mysis shrimp. There's a mix of that reef roids that I showed you. And my corals just absolutely love this stuff. They're huge fans. You'll see some cool feeding reactions here, but the important thing to note is that you can overfeed pretty easily. So don't do a large feeding every day. I generally just do mysis most days. The reason why this is so foggy is because of those reef roids. And you can see some of these corals closing up because they're eating. So anyway, this is really healthy for a tank. You probably didn't see too many of the mysis shrimp going too nuts. So I've actually finished my syringe all the way. So what I'm going to do is I actually refilled it with water. And as I do that, there's going to be a lot more stuff left. So it's just kind of a little bit of a broadcast feed. One of the best things to do is actually when you're broadcast feeding, or when you're doing this target feeding, you get those reef roids really, really dense. You make them very, very you make them very, very, it's almost like a slurry, and that makes it heavy. And what it'll actually do is it will kind of cause it to fall easier onto your corals. Some corals, specifically like this scolie back here, this button scolie up front, sorry. Let me get a little close up for you. This button scolie right here up front. This guy, I didn't feed him, and there's a reason for that. When scolies are ready to eat, they have these tentacles that come out in the middle of them. And a lot of the time they will only eat during the nighttime. And so at night, when you turn off your lights, this little guy, he'll open up and kind of have all these little tentacles sticking out. And that's how you can know, it's like, okay, he's ready to be fed. So a lot of the time what I'll do is I'll do a nighttime feeding just very specifically to him. I'll just get a little bit, just a tiny amount of everything, and just go in and spray it right on top of him, and he just catches all of it perfectly. So if you look here, this blastomussa, right, or micromussas, whatever they're called, right here, you see how they're kind of like a purse? That means they've caught a lot of that food. You can ignore the acan. He's being bugged by this crab that lives right underneath him. He's been bothering him. But anyway, these acans, they'll eat. The Duncan will eat. So this is just basic coral stuff. Corals love to eat. But this right here, you can see my clownfish right there. He's looking for food, and if he catches something that's too big for him, or if he's full, he'll actually feed that anemone. So I was feeding it directly, and you probably saw that, but as they live, as they move around, they'll feed that anemone to keep them nice and happy, nice and big. So that's part of their relationship there. Anyway, thanks for checking out the channel. Appreciate you coming by. I hope that your nano tank is awesome. I absolutely love mine. I hope that all of your tanks look great. But if you want to check out some of our other videos, we have some great videos about clownfish, seahorses, kind of some very specific to different types of fish that you can have in a saltwater aquarium. So go check those out. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you have some ideas about feeding yourself, if you use just some flakes you got at Petco, or if you do something way more fancy, if you have your own food, let us know. We'd love to hear about it. But anyway, this is Some Things Fishy. Appreciate you stopping by.